Hey guys, it's Glenn here. And as you can see, I'm up in Riis Park in the Rockaways. Riis Park's just a little west of New Ponset neighborhood of the Rockaways. And many of you may have heard this wonderful historic building is going to be undergoing major renovations over the next few years. Where they're gonna put a hotel, some restaurants, some shops, so on and so forth. So, talking about a $50 million project to restore and renovate this historic building. So a little bit about this building. This building is a bath facility, or it's called, but back in the day it was called a bathhouse. So this is kind of like where people would come to the beach and they'd change, and had little shops and restaurants in here as well. And then, opened up sometime in the 30s, early 30s, late 30s. It was part of Robert Moses' grand plan as the Parks Commissioner. Robert Moses was, and he was an urban planner. So this was built around that time, and it was kind of built to get people to come to the beach, because Rockaway was not utilized. If you could see in the background over there, you could probably see what is called the Gil Hodges Memorial Bridge, which used to be called the Marine Parkway Bridge. So you could see that in the distance. And once that bridge was open in 1937, I think it was complete, that it allowed people more access. People had more access to vehicles. And once they had access to a bridge to get from Brooklyn to the beautiful Atlantic Ocean, it was a no-brainer. So they built this bathhouse sometime in the 30s, and it was very popular. And if I could show you back that way again, as I mentioned in one of my other videos, at the time when it was built, all this open space was, I believe it was one of the largest parking lots in the United States. I believe it's like almost 5,000 vehicles. And I think the parking lot who ended up taking it away ended up being like Disney World or something like that. I remember hearing stories through the years. You could fact check me. I'm not 100% positive, but I do believe it was one of the largest at the time when it was built in the 1930s, and somewhere along the lines, I guess Disney opened up in the early 70s. But you could see the building. The architecture is very nice, and it was kind of like made to look like a bathhouse that was built in Jones Beach. So, as you know, Robert Moses is responsible for a lot of the roadways, parkways, bridges, and stuff like that connecting the city. But show you the sign here: Jacob Riis Park Gateway National Recreation Area, under the National Park Service of the U.S. Department of the Interior. So, what happened in the 30s, then you had the war of the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, then you had somewhere along the 60s you had people moving out to the suburbs. And as people were moving out to the suburbs in the 60s, these bathhouses kind of were not being used any longer. And when they were not being used, they went into disrepair, like many other things in Rockaway. Rockaway was just, for 25 years, just like forgotten about. So you can see the architecture is very nice. So what ended up happening was a large part of Riis Park was transferred to what's called the Gateway National Recreation Area. So that was sometime, I believe, in the early 70s. So the Gateway National Recreation Area encompasses a lot of different parts of the Rockaways, Staten Island, New Jersey, Broad Channel. So the Gateway National Recreation Area is, so you have Sandy Hook, you have Riis Park, you have Broad Channel, which is the bird sanctuary. Got a good friend over here. Got one of the seagulls. He's gone, but you could see in this bathhouse. So it had two different wings. There was like an east wing and a west wing. And this is when I'm going to take a walk around the side of the building, and maybe you could see. But it's like, it was a no-brainer to build a bathhouse here. Like, you had, back in the day, you had all this open space. And if you look inside, let's see if we can take a look. It's all boarded up, gated up for years, but there's talk of building a swimming pool. So this big area, I've seen some renderings of it. I don't know how accurate it is. I'm sure it's subject to change. But talk about building a big swimming pool here, some restaurants, a hotel. It would be amazing. I mean, it's probably, 30, 40 years overdue, but at least hopefully, they snap to it and get moving. We're going to walk around this side over here. We're going to walk onto the ocean front. So now you're on the ocean front. You can see how beautiful the building really is. I mean, it was that Art Deco design, like you'll see in Miami. Like you'll see a lot of Art Deco buildings in Miami. This was a little bit of Art Deco, and it was very busy. Riis Park was very busy when it opened after the war, till, like I said, till probably the 60s. The invention of airplanes, road trips, the highway system got people traveling where people didn't have opportunities before, so they just traveled locally. But you can see the beach up here is really beautiful. You could probably hear the wind whipping a little bit. Yeah, but this facility back in the heyday must have been really nice. So I remember coming up here as a kid. I'm not going to date myself, but I remember coming up here as a kid. Used to play Little League baseball, and it was open a little bit, but it was so underutilized. So there's talks of like restaurants here. There's talks of rooftop dining, which would be really nice. It would be nice to have that here for people to come, enjoy the beach. And, there's, Rockaway's a tourist destination. And one of the things that's interesting is, we only have one hotel, and that's only been open a couple years, thank God. Otherwise, you'd have a beach destination in New York City that would have no hotels. It doesn't make sense. But gonna try to walk around the front of the facility again, to see. I think there's a historic plaque over there or something. So. Okay, we're at the front of the building, so I guess this is kind of like, where people walked in. It's really, really beautiful. You got to see the architecture. So the architecture is really, really nice. And they'd walk in, and they'd probably have these booths here. So these would be the booths and then you had a doorway, and then you'd have a booth and a doorway, and another booth and a doorway. And you see, that's probably where people would come in to pay. They'd have to pay to go and use the beach back in the day. So there is a plaque, I think, just on the other side over here somewhere. But you can see it's been long neglected, but it was a beautiful, beautiful facility back in its heyday. And actually, here's some historic photos. I don't know if you guys can see with the reflection, but yeah. So there's another one over here. then the building has been, I mean, even the doorways, look at the nice, beautiful doorways they had. So if you could see this, so it used to be crowded. This is where people wanted to be. So people didn't get on airplanes and run away to different places, or they just hopped in the car and took a road trip when they wanted to go away. And that, you know, with the invention of air travel and people moving to the suburbs, it kind of went into disrepair. But you can see the buses. So there's a big bus stop outside. I remember as a kid, and you know, people would just be lined up with buses to take the bus to the beach. So here's that plaque I mentioned. I knew there was a plaque. So let's see if we can read it. The Jacob Riis Park Bathing Pavilion, erected by the City of New York for the recreation of its citizens in the year, 1932. Okay, so I thought it was a little older. So that kind of makes sense if you think about it, because if this building was erected in 1932, that means a few years later, that's when the Marine Parkway Bridge was built. So once this was built, then they had to give people access from Brooklyn and other parts of the city to come out here. So that is your tour of the RockawayBeach Bathhouse. I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, beautiful building, and you know, I'm personally looking forward, as somebody that grew up in the Rockaways, I'm personally looking forward to the day when you know, this is complete and the restoration and renovations are done, and this becomes a useful part of the community again. I hope you guys have a great holiday season, and staying warm.